Facebook, family, and friends, what's going on? You know what it is. Saturday morning, Formers Anonymous, getting it in, doing our thing. Boom, boom. Welcome, Sammy. You all know Sammy, our the founder, and jackass. I mean, bro. You know what we do. Saturday mornings, we get it in. We do what we got to do. We try to help other people and ourselves continue on this life of recovery and this road to success. I mean, let's keep it real here. We are trying to help other people become successful and ourselves continue the success that we've seen throughout our recovery. What's going on, bro?
And for some people, just a bit of a less of an asshole, right? Like if we're going to do a harm reduction approach, we just want some people to be a little less of an asshole than they were yesterday. Look, if you can just be 1% less of an asshole than you were yesterday, and you do that consistently, I mean, that adds up.
Yeah. Eventually, you are no longer as much of an asshole. You know, it's funny you said that because I was talking to a PO the other day. I had stopped by the DMV, and a PO I had known from a couple years back was there. And she stopped me. She was like, Monty, what's going on? And so we started talking. And she had asked about FA. She had asked, are you guys still doing FA? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And she said, I got a kid. I want to send him through it if he's amicable. And I was like, cool beans. And she goes, what is the absolute point of the program? And I was like, to be less of an asshole overall. Right? To just be less of a dick. Like, that's rule number one in my house. Don't be a dick.
Can we get you to like reduce the amount of robberies you do in a given week?
Right. So, that's a big thing when people ask why I do it. It's not some altruistic reason that, I get this great feeling about being a better person. Like, that's part of it. But the real deal is every time we stop someone from going back to prison, every time we stop somebody from reoffending, we stop someone from creating a victim. And that victim can be our mom, our dad, our sisters, our brothers, our cousins, our neighbors, our nephews, our nieces, right? So every time we help somebody not do something stupid, or, all of us, everybody watching, when you reach out to someone and you save them from making that mistake that they're going to make just by being their friend, right? You stop a victim from being created. Like, you're doing a real deal Holyfield, public service. You're helping people become better, and you're helping protect people around you from being victimized. So that's an important thing to me.
Absolutely, man.
So how you doing this week, bro? I heard you had some flooding down there.
Lots of flooding. It's, while on one hand it's concerning, on the other hand it's like breathtaking, man. The level of flooding, like to see Mother Nature like just take over because she wants to, man. And with such ease, it just I think water is the ultimate element, man. It's just it's a game changer around here, man. So yeah, there's been a lot of roads washed out where I'm at, and our pond is overflowing indiscriminately. It's just really taken over some of the pathways, and it's incredible, man. But I actually did I haven't pushed it out yet, but I did a very brief idea of like how that pond, to me, that pond is big, right? And to see that pond spilling over, right? It's holding all this water, and it's filled so much to the brim that it has to spill over. That's what people do, right? People are so full of the stress and the headaches of the storm water, right, if you will, and their cup overflows, right? They start to overflow. And so what we see, like when they got short tempers, or they're snappy, or perhaps they're isolated, like all you're really seeing is what they can't hold in. That's the brim, right? Think of everything that's still in there that hasn't come out yet, that's waiting to burst out, right? And I was like, sometimes you just got to empty your cup. Like sometimes you got to, a cup isn't meant to stay full, right? a cup is meant to hold something temporarily until we do what we're going to do with it, right? But the problem is that we stay so full of all of that stuff that the symptoms leak out. Those are just symptoms. So imagine you going to prison one day. You went to prison, right? You ready for this? That was just a symptom.
Right. Right.
Right. When you think of how catastrophic life can be, man, a lot of times what we're seeing is just what we couldn't contain. It wasn't even the whole story. It was just what we couldn't hold on to, what we couldn't imagine, dealing with. So the point of the matter is we got to talk about the stuff that bothers us. We got to get it out. We got to empty our cup once in a while. So yeah, that pond made me think of that the other day. So just sharing a little tidbit of that today. Did you fall asleep over?
No, one of my bros just hit me up out of the blue. I was just letting them know we're live right now.
You straight nodded off. You did like this. You did like this. Hey, you did like this. Like, whoa.
You know. Oh, we got some comments here. I'm sorry I missed you guys. I was sharing the feed. Amy, good morning.
Morning, Amy. Good morning, Jack. Look at all the love I'm getting.
What's up, Jack? I see you, bro.
You see who Amy said first, right?
You know what, Sammy? Screw you, bro.
Did you notice that Jack only said good morning to me? I get all the love and attention here.
You know what, big dog? Dog, I'm not talking to you anymore. I'm done. Quit smoking Monty.
That's right. Quit smoking Monty. Yeah.
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, okay. It's that horse cough you got there. It's either that or the other substance you consume at massive amounts that you're trying to cough up.
Coffee?
That's not what I was thinking of.
I'm so over this, man. I can't take the abuse anymore.
Listen.
My cup overfloweth.
I hear you, brother. I'm sorry. I won't put your business out there.
You see that painting in the background? You see it coming along?
Yeah, that's coming along, man. All I got was that bullshit one you gave me.
You know what? I'm done with you. You guys, this is over with. We're ending the live now.
Let's do it.
So let's talk about what we can do. You put out a little video the other day on TikTok that I really enjoyed, and you were talking about the steps, right? What steps do I take today? So what steps do our viewers and myself take today, right? What do we do today to make ourselves feel better and be better and possibly not feel better but grow?
Well, I think the idea that there are only certain steps, that's a myth, right? There are a lot of things we can do, but a lot of people have to have a place to start from, right? Because honestly, you can start from any direction you want. The point of it is to get started. But a lot of us don't do so well without direction, without having something out. And so I'm constantly thinking of ways that are highly relatable, that are simple to remember and recall, and in many ways can simplify the complexity of what we're trying to do. What we're really trying to do, and I'm going to go into depth with you guys today, we're trying to have a breakthrough. People are constantly, routinely, all the time trying to have a breakthrough. How do I get to the next level in life? Or how do I get to the next 10 levels in life? We all want the breakthrough, right? And there's a couple of things I think you got to do. You got to clean up in order to get prepared for the breakthrough. But I'm going to walk you through the breakthrough today. But today we're going to give you three ways of thinking about this. So step one, plain and simple, man. We have to go from the fears that we think brought us here to the years that brought us here. And what do I mean by that? A lot of times we're living attached to trauma, attached to issues that are unresolved, things in the past, and even limiting beliefs that lead to ideas about ourselves and about opportunities in life that we just don't think we'll ever have. A lot of that is fear-based. It's a very primal reaction, right? Like fear is as old as our DNA. And fear was designed to keep us alive, right? We knew we either needed to run, we needed to fight, or we needed to freeze, right? We needed to do something to escape a hyper dangerous situation. And so the genetics in us teach us, what to do in response to threats. The problem is that the mind can trick us into thinking that we're always living under threat. So when we look at the past, all we see is all the evidence in the whole wide world that shows us how dangerous the world is and how unreliable it is and how ill prepared I am, right, to face it at the core. Even tough dudes walking around tough are the reason we have to portray toughness and aggression is underpinned with fear. Think about that, Monta. At the height of my leadership as a gang member of a violent Chicago gang, a well-known Chicago gang, was really some basic fear. One basic fear that, if I was discovered to be human, it would be perceived as a weakness, and therefore I had to kind of remove humanity from my character in order to maintain this persona of being more than just human, right? Or of living in fear of perhaps feeling like an imposter, right? Because I have feelings, but if I share those feelings, I won't fit in, right? Like it hurts me when I think about not seeing my kids, or it hurts me when I don't get a visit, or it hurts me when I don't get mail, or it hurts me when PRC says I can't get out, right? But how do I act, right? How do I act? My fears of being let down by men leads me to work. Yeah, we do that. I mean, we overcompensate. So in many ways, we're overcompensating. That's what Amy's talking about, right? We're overcompensating to try to hold off the inevitable, right? And so that's fear-based. And so what we're saying is, like, in a program of recovery, right? When you're in recovery, those experiences become your wisdom. It becomes your lesson, right? So instead of the fear that is accumulated over the years, it's the experience that you've accumulated over the years that's going to start driving your choices and the way you make decisions, the way you think of yourself, the way you see yourself, and the way you see the world, what you understand about your. Remember last week we were spinning. Right? If you notice in the comments, somebody would ask for an answer, right? And they're like, "How do I do this?" And then you give them an answer, and then you'd be like, "Yeah, but." Right? Yeah, but great answer, but or they just keep pouring more and more of the problem out, right? It's got to spill out. So they compound the problem. So they give me a component of the problem. Well, I don't trust anyone. Well, we got to go to counseling. Well, I don't trust counselors. Well, you got to get over that. Yeah, but right. And then it's just an endless dilemma. And eventually you say, you got to say, stop. Just stop. That's panic. That's anxiety. That's everything that's counterintuitive. Right now, you're a different person than when you developed your fear. You see, that's a big piece of this. Today, you're a different person than you were when you developed the fear, which means you're a different person today when you developed your mechanism to protect yourself way back when. Go back to the rubber ducky, right? Go back to the rubber. I threw you a yellow rubber ducky inner tube to help save you from drowning. 30 years later, you're still wearing it. You're a different person than you were then when you established, whatever steps you needed to. But we never really come to terms with that. We never stop to recognize that, oh, wait a minute, I am a different person. Yeah, all these men hurt me in the past. All these women hurt me in the past. And I did what I had to do then to get me to here, but do I really need to keep doing that now that I'm here?
Right.
Right. You can't drive a car everywhere. Eventually you got to get out of the car and walk, right? So you're driving the car, and now you're trying to drive the car on the path where you're supposed to walk. That shit just doesn't work. You got to get out and you got to walk the path, right? Good morning, Joe. So that's
Morning, Jimbo.
that's the fear,
Morning,
right?
Aunt Chris.
We've got to come over. We got to come over this hump where we recognize that, okay, fear underneath all of my actions, a lot of my actions, my behaviors, my thoughts, my feelings, we have technology was fear. But that same time period that's filled with fear is also filled with experience. You can choose to focus on the fear, or you can choose to focus on the experience. And that's where we exchange fear for the years that God is here, right? Because there's a lot of wisdom. You think of where the 12-step programs, including Formers Anonymous, came from. It came from all that hardship, all that failure, all that fear. That's the only way we created what we created, was we decided to stop filtering it through the lens of fear,
Yeah.
right? This when we look, think of forgiveness. When we're talking about concepts revolving around forgiveness, what we're really saying is, I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't want to live with this in this way anymore, right? If you don't want to um, if you don't want to live like this way anymore with what you've been carrying, then you have to be willing to exchange motivations. So, do we want to be fearful or do we want to be mindful?
Absolutely.
See, dogs walk at the level of nose, eyes, ears, right? People, and when you look at a dog's ass, stomach, and mouth are all on the same level, right? They walk with it this way, like on
Yep.
a level plane, right? People walk with mind, mouth, heart, stomach, asshole, right? They're a hierarchy, and it's kind of like reminding us where we're living. And so when we live from fear, we live at the stomach and below.
Right.
And so when we want to address your fear, there's two things you got to bring into it. You got to bring your mind. Your mind has to help you calm down, and you got to bring your heart, right? And all of that passes through the mouth. That has to pass through the mouth. We have to kind of confront it verbally in that way. So that's step one. We've got to move from fear to the years that brought us here, the experiences that we don't live in the past, as we say, but we look back there to see what lessons can be born from it, right? Like, what can we pull that's going to help elevate us here? So the fear is keeping us rooted in the past. Recovery will help us learn from the past. And that's a huge leap. That's a huge, you get out of your car and you start walking the trail that was meant to be walked, right? Otherwise you get stuck in your vehicle, right? You just get stuck. And so we get stuck there. But all somebody needs to come by and says, hey, you don't need to do that anymore. There's an easier way. There's a better way. And when we say simple, we're just saying climb the mountain. We recognize how much goes into that, but it's the simplifying the way we have to think about what we need to do. So that's step one.
Yeah, in the beginning, I was terrified of that mountain, right? Like, let's talk about the mountain real quick here, man.
Mm-hmm.
We see it, right? Especially when we're first walking into changing our lives, right? We first decide we got to do something different. It's got to change. I need something better. This is what I'm going to do. And then we stop and we look, and then we look, and then we look, and then we look, and then we look. And that mountain seems so insurmountable. It seems so large, and we become frightened. And then for me, the thing that goes through my head, and I wrote about it this week, is I am not ready for that, right? I'm not ready for that, man. That fucking mountain, that's a big fucking mountain, right? Like, holy shit, what am I going to do? What I learned was that if I continue to focus on not being ready, right? Like saying I'm not ready, thinking about not being ready, right? I won't make that first step. Like, I wasn't ready to go back to the gym with Alex, right? Like, I ain't been in the gym in 12 years. I got kids. I'm 46. I work a job. I don't have time. I'm not ready. My shoulder hurts. My back hurts. My legs ache. You know what I mean? But there I am in the gym, doing the smallest weight of anybody in the gym, including the other girls, right? Like, there's girls pushing more weight than me right now. I'm just getting in there, right? But I'm in there. The next
There
day,
there will always be girls pushing more than you, Monte, just so you know.
so I'm in there, and the next day,
Nothing wrong
you
with
know, and the day after, my legs are killing me, my back is killing me, my shoulders are killing me, and then I went back, right? Like I'm never going to get up that mountain, right? Because that's the mountain I'm climbing today, is getting my health back into shape, right? Getting back into a healthier lifestyle. You know, I don't want to die. It's a mountain for me. I'm lazy. Like if I'm not working, I want to be in bed. I want to be on the couch. I want to watch TV with the kids. But this hour and a half a day, 2 or 3 times a week, can extend my life 10 more years, right? This 2 or 3 days, hour and a half, can make me feel better during the time that I'm here. So if I continuously tell myself I'm not ready and don't move forward, right, I'll never really be ready for any particular event. All I can do is prepare myself for whatever may come and push the fuck forward, right? So that mountain, that for me was the biggest hurdle. Hold on. Can say that fear had a big part last year, but over the years since I lost grandma, I have learned not to have fear as long as you put mind to it. And you need to not let fear get in your way if you want change. I dig what you're saying, Bob, Jim. Fear, I still feel fear, but fear isn't a bad thing, right? To me, like I use my fear to help drive me, right? I use my fear to help warn me of a bad situation. I just don't allow it to make me freeze, right? If we freeze in the face of fear, it's over with, right? We always have to have some type of action. I feel immediate expectations of others is a no-no. It's important to experience people and allow others to show us what they're about, and vice versa. As a person who has been severely pooped on and hurt by my past partners, I had to come to the point that I accepted that hurt is always going to be a potential. From there, I found peace when I found acceptance and set responsible boundaries that prevented future hurt. It doesn't remove that it can happen, but rather healthy boundaries set the safety protocol to recognize when it was happening or in the near future. Yeah, dig. That's something you talked to me a lot about, Sammy, was setting boundaries, healthy boundaries, with whatever it is that I'm doing and around me. And I dig what he said, what Jim said.
You know, it's this we're talking a lot about others in these comments.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're talking about has nothing to do with others.
Right.
We're not asking how to cope with others, right? It's how we
cope with us,
how we process things, right? Because others will still be others. And I think both Chrissy and Jim kind of recognize that, like, other people will be people. We can't control what other people do or what they're like, right? The focus has to be on the way we perceive the world and the life that we live and the experiences that we have. Experiences equal energy. And so how do we use and convert that energy? That goes to the next point, which is, I think anyone who's commenting like Chris have done some of this work, right? We have to tie up loose ends, right? The loose ends are all the unresolved issues that we have with our experiences and with our life. Look, all of our suffering, whether it comes in the form of addiction, relationships, whatever, failed relationships, all of our suffering is as a result of, it happens because, you ready for this? This is a or both, Amy. I'm just throwing that out there. It comes as a result of who we are, right? The things that have happened to us, we like to think happen because of external factors. And to a degree, that's true. But most of it was manifested by us. Look, how is it that every person I dated up to a certain point in my life was exactly like the person before that? Right? How many times did I date the same person in a different body?
Right.
Right. And so you start to tell yourself, oh, all people are like that. We think what we think we've done is that we've dated people of a variety, but really what we fished out of was a bucket. And and in this bucket are all goldfish. And so you throw your hook in there and there's goldfish. You pull out a goldfish, you're like, oh, it's like the last one, and then you start to assume that all fish are goldfish. And so then you assume all people are bad people, right? It's we manifested it, man, to a degree, right? So when we realize I've got a long list of people behind me that have all treated me the same way, we have to recognize there's something about me that is attracting that. What signaling, what messaging, what behavior, what mentality, what emotional reaction, and how am I attracting this? Look, if you only go to a bar to date, that's going to be your experience. That's not the world, though. Right? Like, that's not the world. Now, granted, you might find the same exact person in church that you find in a bar, because guess what? Some of those people go to both of those places. But it's about what kind of flag we're flying, right? And we don't even know that we're flying a flag, right? If you want health and you look, you remember this month there, I was going to family court, and family court was handing me my ass every time I went into court. They slammed me with like $850 in child support on $1,000 a month salary when I was laid off. They forced me to try to sell my home, found me in contempt. Were threatening to take the kids' custody because I was in contempt because I couldn't sell the home because I didn't have enough money to sell the home and buy a home. Like, I went through all these hoops and hurdles, and I was talking to this guy who helped coach me and mentor me. His name is Marcus. Marcus said two things to me. He said, you are living at the level of your wounds, right? He's like, you're living at the level of your wounds. You are manifesting your loss. You live life like you deserve to lose. Now, when you think about what formers are dealing with, is all that guilt and shame, and we definitely live like we should be lashing ourselves at all times, right? But when he said that, it was like, man, you're a fucking liar. Why would I ever live like this willingly?
Right.
And, that's what I'm going to, like, it was really mad. So then check this out. That same day I go home. Now I'm going home to myself, by myself. I got to listen to what he just said. I open up my computer, and Tyrese, the actor, is on like Facebook, and he put out a video, and he said, if you're on here complaining about your life, that's because you ain't done shit about your life. I'm like, why am I getting this shit from both ends here? I couldn't understand why I was getting beat up like this. It was like head to toe, no cover up, 3 minutes, right? I was like, holy shit, man. And I literally threw my laptop. I literally threw it. I was so mad. And then I just had to sit there and think it through, right? And I was thinking. And then you know what I did? I'm like, okay, I'm not doing enough. That's ultimately what I got. I'm not doing enough. I'm not fighting in the right way. Dude, from that moment, here are the action steps I took. I couldn't afford my truck payment. I sold my truck, traded it for a small car. That's when I got that little red Stonic. I went from $400 a week in gas to like $35. Saved instant money. I lowered down my my cell phone bill, right? I just stripped away as much as I could. I think I had like a $40 or $50 cell phone bill from like $300. I just did a bunch of stuff, right? Just went through this. Okay, what can I do to save money since the court's taking so much money? And I was still not making it, but I was doing better than I wasn't. I did enough to maintain, right?
Right.
And then I had to, the harder part was like, how do I change the way things are happening in court? Let me tell you, when I changed my mindset, Monte, bullshit you not. From the moment I realized, no, I'm no longer going into court expecting to lose. I'm going in there to fight for my kids. Excuse me. Dude, I never lost in court again. Not only did I not lose, I got full placement with my daughters.
Yeah.
I got full placement of my daughters. Now I can say, I can tell that story like life is always shitting on me. Everybody's got it in for me. All women are bad. Fuck the court system because everyone in that court system is. I can live like that, and there'd be elements of truth to that. But there's a whole lot of limiting beliefs in that about me, coming from me, that attract that. We manifest the happiness and the joy as well as the suffering and the sadness to some degree. And if we go back to step one, where we're living in fear versus the years that got us here, once you convert that to experience rather than just a fear, start to pull out the lessons you need to change your life at that level, man. You start tying up loose ends within yourself. What unresolved issues, and part of what we're going to talk about in a little bit, I made some notes this morning so I wouldn't forget. But a part of what we're talking about is identity. This whole thing is about identity. This whole concept that I'm rolling out, we haven't even said it. It's about identity. It's how you look at yourself. And as a result, how you look at the world. And as a result, how you experience yourself. And as a result, how you experience the world. It's all interconnected, man. It's all interconnected. It's we're either all pretending not to be pretending, or we all recognize that there is something in us that is limiting us, and we need to kind of unearth that. We got to dig it out and figure out, how do I shift? How do I change? How do I change? I mean, the courts can call you what they want. I call myself. When I went into child support, they said, even though I had my children 50% of the time, they called me the non-custodial parent. Right. I said, please do not refer to me as that. I don't recognize that term. I won't sign anything where you call me that. I have custody of my children just as much, and actually more financially responsible for them than the other party. Do not refer to me as a non-custodial parent. And we went back and forth, right? Again, people will put things on you. It's whether or not you're going to wear it. Look, I was losing in the same court. I started winning. Did the court change? Did I change the court? No. I changed the way I interacted with the court, and it changed my life.
Right.
It changed my life because I changed. My expectations of me. Now, I know I couldn't control it, but it was just we don't realize how much power we have when we create. And what we create with our thoughts, man. And if our loose ends are still telling us these negative things, these limiting beliefs about ourselves and about life, that's all we're going to continue to get. We're going to continue to suffer.
No doubt.
Right? We cannot afford it, man. As true as it is, we can't afford to live like that and to think like that. That's their shit, man. We recognize the family court system is broken, but I don't have to interact in it from a broken place.
That's right.
That's how I control. Just like with corrections, man. Right? I beat up how many police? I beat up a total of 8 cops over the course of my time in prison.
Yep.
8. I took over several buildings and several prisons over the course of my time in prison. How the hell did I get out? How did I get out? How did I go from damn near 12, 13 years in the hole to having a DOC badge hanging up right behind me on this bookshelf? How? The only thing that changed was me.
Right.
Corrections didn't change. Law enforcement didn't change. Family court didn't change. In fact, the bucket of which I was fishing from, the women in there haven't changed. But it takes a certain kind of man to fish out of that bucket too. So it starts with me, not the bucket. I select the bucket. But it starts with me, right? It's hard to say that because what we want to do is be able to blame something else for our outcomes. And there may be people and parties responsible for their part, but ultimately I have to be the one responsible for my part. Right? I can't change the way you do your thing, courts, family, women, men, whoever, it's just the way it is. And I'll tell you, man, when I was in the streets, there was a young lady who I used to be really close to. She taught me a valuable lesson. When I asked her how come I'm always getting betrayed by the streets, she said, "That's the life, man."
Yeah.
Like,
what do you expect, right? We're a bunch of hustlers, killers, criminals, thieves. Why do they keep shitting on me?
I mean, it's it is what it is, man. So we got to tie up these loose ends, right? We've got to get together. We've got to address unresolved issues with ourselves. Look, Monte, right now, how many push-ups can you do?
22.
22, right? Now you can say, I'm a fucking failure. I'm a weakling. There are girls in the gym who can do more than me. Fact.
Yeah.
But
right there.
You can also say, this is my starting point. This is where I want to go up from here. Right?
Yeah.
Nothing about what you're doing is changing other than your mentality. And one will either give you strength or rob you of it. We got to tie up those loose ends, man. Now, here's where I think some of what I'm hearing from Jim, where I would say apply this more. Apply this more. Live at the level of your strengths versus your wounds. Do not live at the level of your wounds, right? We're all being wounded here. All right. We're all being wounded here in life. Life is a wounding fact, right? It's all parents hurt their kids, all kids hurt their parents. And remember, the proverbial parent can be systems, it can be an entity, it can be, the courts, it can be, a school district. Who knows, right? We all are always in the process of being hurt. But I'm a big fan of saying iron sharpens iron, man. And when you think of forging, man, you got to get those coals red hot. You got to get that metal red hot, and then you beat the shit out of it with a hammer, and then you're shaping it and trying to sharpen it and sanding it and grinding it and dousing it in oil water. Like, you're going through this entire process of getting beat up, right? Like, the whole time you're getting annihilated in there, man. Like, think of the life history of a knife.
Right.
How did that come to be, right? And where did it come from? It came from the core of the earth, right? It came from everything that built that knife came from the core of the earth, and it came in a very unrefined, unfinished, natural state of nothing.
Yeah.
And yet here we are, forming it with our will, forming it with our skill, with our experience. Some of that we've learned on our own, and others have taught it, right? That is the 12-step program to a T. It's a forge, right? It's a forge. And it is what it is, man. You got to you've got to be willing to temper yourself. You got to be willing to go through that. You have to live at the level of your strengths. How do we know even if your brain is fucked up, you want to know how we know you got strength? Because it took a certain amount of strength to make it through all of that with a fucked up brain. And maybe even more so when your brain's messed up, right? To put on a sock sounds easy enough, right? But when I broke my leg, to do the same exercise that I've done for 40 plus years, putting on a sock was damn near impossible. It took me so much effort and energy to put that sock on than it did anybody else. Right. So a lot of us have these disabilities, man. And sometimes the disability isn't necessarily just a mental health issue. It can be a physical limitation. It can be the way the deck is stacked against you in this world, right? You don't have enough money, you're impoverished, or you don't have any education, whatever it may be. Maybe you got the wrong education. I don't know. But it does take us a certain amount of extra energy to do the same things that we expect other people to do, man. And so we have to live at the level of our strengths. And that means that's where we got to break this down, Monte, because people don't know to what extent their strength actually exists, right? And here's why. We have all these limiting beliefs about what we think we are, what we think who we are, what we think about who we are. Who am I? Right? I'm a defendant. I'm a mace. I mean, that's the story you're telling yourself about yourself. I mean, you can be whatever you want. If you're happy with those stories, then don't change it. But if you're not happy, you got to continue to rewrite that whole story. You've got to, I haven't ever given up in a fight. I've changed what I'm fighting for and how I fight, but I've never given up. And I learned to set different boundaries, different borders. I put limitations in place so that, I could make sure that things were done in balanced to the best of my ability. But here's what we got to do, man. Since we're talking about identity, we need to understand the true power of it. And that's the case I've been making this morning. That's what I've been talking about. But what we need to spend more talking about is, where does your competitive edge come from? Right? What is the source of your competitive edge? What makes you unique? What gives you the edge in life? I would say for Jim's definitely a fighter, right? He's been fighting for a long time. So we know that he's going to fight, right? We know he's going to continue to fight in one way or another. But then we have to start talking congruently with our past and our present. When your past doesn't match the way your present being is, you're going to have what I would call like discord. It's not going to match. And so that's, if we're talking from a place of fear, but we're talking about making progress, you see how those things don't align. But if we talk about the past being full of experience that I can use and where I'm at today, those align. That's congruent. That communication is congruent. We cannot say, yeah, but yes, I'm moving on, but you know, this is why it's hard. Remember when we say, oh, how many people in recovery have we heard say it's hard? That's a bullshit statement. It's true, but it's a bullshit statement because it's misleading, it's limiting. It's hard, but it's necessary. Like
Right.
you have to finish the sentence. So you try to understand identity. You're trying to understand where your competitive edge comes from. Where do you get your advantage in life from? You speak in a way that your past and your present line up, right? They're not misaligned. I hate my life, but I love life. Like that doesn't match, right? It's gotta
Right.
You come to learn to love your past and all the pain that was in it. You come to love it. I don't know how else to put it. You come to have deep affection and empathy and compassion for what you've been through and all the assholes that were a part of that, even, like you realize they all played a part. They all played a part. And now here's where I always push people. You got to live it, man. You can't speak this way and say you're this way. It all has to line up. You can't be different behind a closed door as you are when it's open. It's all got to align, right? Now that's the kind of the concept of identity. That's just one tiny component, because your identity is the state you are in. That's the state you're in. When you look at the state of your life, that's one bubble out of three more that are coming. Right? The state that I am in. And so we've talked about the fear. We've talked about whether or not we're living with our strengths or with our wounds. Are there a lot of loose ends? We have to clean all of that up, right? Now, here's the question I'm going to ask you as we start working towards this breakthrough. What is your old identity? I think we're really good at talking about that, right? What is your old identity? And how do you need to expand it to get to the next step in your life, right? What do you got to add to your old identity to improve it, right? And this, I think recovery helps us do that. Now, in order to do that, you got to recognize, you have to acknowledge the life that you deserve and want to live. So if I want to have my kids in my life, I've got to figure out a way to expand my identity to make that true, to have that, to want more of that, right? If I want to be peaceful and nonviolent, I have to imagine my life being like that. And then I have to ask myself, if I want to run my own company, I got to ask myself, how do I need to expand my identity in order to be able to fulfill that one day? What do I got to do to add that? For a lot of us, we say, well, go to school. Mm-hmm. I want to stop drinking, go to get some help, get some counseling, go to 12-step. I want to be in better shape, go to the gym. Like we imagine it. We see it all the time. That's where the living it comes from. Now, at your core, you have to be able to identify what your new identity is. And it's not just about, physics, it's intellect and spirit too. Where am I going internally with some of this stuff, man? And once you start to imagine, I want you to imagine what your new life will look like. Like you have to fantasize about that. That's manifesting, right? You have to fantasize about what tomorrow will look like. Because remember, in step 4, here's where I'm at. Here's where I'd like to be. This is how this is how we're going to get there. Get where? Because that fourth piece is always hovering there. You have to imagine what your new life is going to look like. I'm going to have my kids. I'm going to have a better home. I'm going to have a better job. I'm going to be successful. I'm going to have a healthy relationship. We have to talk about that, right? And we got to take the poles out of the bucket. Put the poles away for right now. When you start fishing, you're going to realize there's a lot more variety and type in the ocean, right? Who knows what you'll catch. There are goldfish in the ocean too, though, so just beware.
Yeah, I caught you. I mean,
the other way around, fool.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. It takes, for me, it took a lot. It took a lot of time to sit down, reflect, talking with you and others like you who had my best interest at hand, right? We're just concerned with my success, right? And taking that responsibility, making that step to get out of my little bucket and go into the big ocean, that was frightening, right? Like putting myself out there, that was a scary situation. Y'all know what time it is. You see this?
Look, I came prepared so I wouldn't have to overburden my the love of my life on Mother's Day weekend with getting me coffee.
Right, Sammy? Thank you.
Boom.
Hey, this is my second cup. Thank you. And it's not my fault that she loves me more than Julie loves you.
So you weren't drinking out of a bucket, but Lizzie obviously was.
Yeah, absolutely. We already know, bro. Like I'm marrying up the ladder, right? Like far up beyond my, my station. I reached. I made it. It was one of those whole, Michael Jordan reached for the stars, jumping moment. I was like, oh, I got it, and now I won't let it go. Like you're not going anywhere. Shut up. Make me a sandwich. Take care of the children thing. Don't put shoes on. Stay in the kitchen. I'm going to die in a few minutes. As soon as Lizzie sees this, I'm just joking, everybody. We all know I don't wear the pants in my household. Yeah, it was a frightening step for me, like making the choice to look at my life honestly, right? To see the faults, to see the mistakes I was making, even though I was doing good, right? Like I wasn't drinking, I wasn't getting high, and I don't have problems with drugs or alcohol. Like those weren't my addictions, so that wasn't something. But I wasn't falling into like a habit of doing dope or going back to my street life. I wasn't doing any of those things, but I was failing.
Did you see Amy's comment?
God damn it. Where are my damn tacos? There's so much I can say. I'm going to help her kill you.
Look at what Amy wrote, dude.
See, the frightening thing is I believe Amy, right?
Talk to me, Amy. I've got tips.
What the hell? Like, this is the wrong thought. Get out of that thought process, you guys. We don't kill people.
Sorry.
Why do I come on here on Saturday mornings? Like, I could be sleeping right now, playing video games.
I could be asleep too.
Building a model for my son. Look. Taylor's so excited by this, you guys. Like, he comes into the office and says, Dada, can I see my air? Violence is not my addiction. I could stop after you.
There'd be a place for you at the table, Amy.
This is just brutal. You guys, this is very brutal this morning.
Amy will be the other co-host after you're gone.
Where's my producer? Julie, if I end up missing.
Amy's face is going to be right there.
Julie, don't help them if I come up missing. That's all I'm saying. Avenge me.
The show must go on.
Unfortunately, you're correct, right? Yeah, absolutely, man. Taking responsibility for our own lives and our own futures and our own success, that's a huge part of it. And making sure you're surrounding yourself with the people who are truly interested in your best interest at hand. Cutting off the part of my life that was hurting me the most was probably the greatest thing I did, right? To grow. It was terrifying. Like that sense of misplaced loyalty, right? Like, this person that did this for me, then I should go down with them. That was a hard step for me, Sammy. But it was probably the greatest step that I took, right? That was the biggest hurdle on my journey up the mountain, was just getting past that. Now, all these other things that I'm having to do seem so much smaller than that one step that I had to take to start. Like that's all there was to it.
Yeah.
And now look at my company. I got, these amazing human beings who surround me, Amy, Jim Bob, Jimbo, my Aunt Chris, OMRN, Kat, Lizzie, like her parents. Like there's all these people who only have my success at their best interest, right? You know, they only have my continued growth in their best interest. When I make a hurdle and I get past that littlest jump, right? That littlest block in my road, they celebrate as if it was the first one that was the hardest, right? That's how excited they are. I dig it.
So now I'm going to give you.
I still love you, Monte. Now where's my coffee? On the way, babe. I'm going to send Lizzie right I'm fucking dead, you guys. I'm done. You will not see me next week. I'm fucking through. Hey, Lizzie, Amy needs coffee.
Amy, there's a fresh pot here. Next time you want to come down and visit.
Hey, I got a job coming down to St. Louis. You mind if we after we're done, we come down and see you for a day or two? Me and David.
Who is we?
Me and David.
Oh, yeah, I don't mind. You bring COVID with you again, I'm fucking you up.
I didn't bring COVID the first time. You gave me COVID.
First of all, I hadn't even left the house.
No, you flooded.
Not the inside. The inside's not flooded, Amy. This house is big. Listen.
It is, and it's beautiful.
I'm going to give you 5 things to establish what we've been talking about. So I've given you 3 things you got to do internally, but I'm going to give you 5 things you got to do. They're very simple. Number 1, you ready? You ready for this?
Bang it out. Let's go.
Be clear on who you really want to be. You got to be crystal clear on that. A better father, not crystal clear. That's vague. You need to have like at least a paragraph of what that looks like. Right? You got to be crystal clear on who you want to be, what you want to be in life, you know, and not your roles. Not your roles. So as a father, what do you want to be? What are your virtues? What are your values? What are your principles? What are your core beliefs? And what does your action look like, right? What do you really want? You got to be crystal clear. You got to manifest this, man. You got to manifest this, right? It's like buying a house. How many bedrooms do you want? How much yard do you want? What kind of neighborhood do you want to live in? How much money can you put on it? How much are you willing to do this? Blah, blah, blah. Go sell that house, Amy.
Get your money, sweetie. Love you.
Now that's part. So we got to envision where we want to go, right? But then you also have to be under that one. You got to be able to identify where you really are. Here's where I'm at. I still yell too much, or I'm not going to the gym enough, or I'm still doing this or that. You know, where do you want to be and where are you at now? We got to understand. That's called discord. We got to know how far away we are from where we actually are. We need to be, if you want to buy $1 million home and you only have $20 in the bank, you're a little bit away, but you got to start somewhere. Make sense? Now, here is the hard part. You ready for this? This is part 2. You got to replace and destroy any limiting belief that you have. Any. About self or others, right? If it's a negative statement, it's a limiting belief. Now, this doesn't mean you live with your, being naive or with rose-colored glasses. No, what it means is that you're not spending any time entertaining negative thoughts. People are all assholes. We can't afford thoughts like that, right? The court is corrupt. We can't afford thoughts like that. I'll be honest with you. As corrupt as these big systems are, there are points of life within it, and guess what? You can find it.
Yep. Those
can become your allies. So you got to replace, you got to crush, destroy, annihilate limiting beliefs, limiting thoughts, and you got to be able to recognize what those are. And you got to be able to interrupt it. So that's part 2, because you can't remember, manifestation comes from your thoughts. The universe supposedly hears what you are saying and thinking about, and it doesn't interpret, it doesn't filter. If it hears you talking about debt, it's going to give you more debt. If it hears you talking about wealth, it's going to give you more wealth. And that will be because those are the radar signals you're sending out, right? That's what manifestation is. In order to be able to overcome those limiting beliefs, now you got to censor yourself. You got to be able to watch your language. You got to be able to see, what am I saying right now? Is it positive or negative? Is it problem focused or solution focused? Is it deficit focused or is it resource focused, right? You may not have $1 million. So are you going to focus on the fact that you don't have $1 million, or you're going to focus on the next step to start getting that $1 million, right? You have to watch your language. Yeah, we know the reality. Remember, in step one, we determined what the reality is. I don't have $1 million. I want $1 million. All right. So when we're talking about that, you know, the limiting belief might be I could never save up that amount of money versus the new belief, which was like, how do I start? What do I got to do? How much money do I got to save up? How much time do I actually need to raise that? Am I being realistic? What does that look like?
Right.
And then where we're at right now is watching our language like, man, I can't do this. This is just too hard versus I'm going to do this regardless of how hard it is. Right. That indomitable spirit. Here's where everyone struggles, Monty. You talk about climbing that mountain. The vast majority of people will never take the first step to climb that mountain. The vast majority of people won't be able to climb the mountain. But where are you at in that line? Right? Because
I'm halfway up that mountain, bro. I don't know where you're at.
you see what I'm saying? Like the statistic doesn't help. What you got to realize is that I don't need to be a part of that statistic. 80% of people who take the first step towards anything, you ready for this? 80% of people who take a first step finish. They finish, Monte.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it. As hard as that first step is, as hard as taking that first step is, right. That I told you that was the hugest hurdle for me. Getting over that very first barrier. Your big ass can't get halfway. Jim Bob, I'm in the gym now. I'm getting there. Wow. Taking that first step to changing my life, that was the absolute hardest thing I had to do. Like, it's been easier every step of the way since. And every time I make it up another mile marker, every time I click off another one of those little distance tags, the next thing in my thing, it gets easier, even when it's hard, right? Nothing has been as hard as that first step. Nothing has been as difficult or as frightening or as heartbreaking as making the first step to cut that life off of me and cut that weight off of me and move forward.
That's the massive action, right? That's the kind of massive action that you have to take. You have to take massive action, a series of massive actions, right? Like whatever you have to do. And it's not up for interpretation. If it feels like a big step for you, then it is a big step for you. It doesn't matter what it is for anybody else.
Yep.
Right? You've got to take massive action. You know what I mean? Aspirations without discipline are just dreams, man. You know, if you can have all the hopes and wants in the world, but if you don't have discipline around that, you're never going to accomplish that, right? Massive action is the discipline part, right? It's when you decide that you're going to face something and then you take a step to face it, right? That's the massive action. That's a key to the formula. The last thing here is, and this is probably where we don't understand the math, but you have to trust in it. You got to give more than you're going to get out of this process. That's the service part of things, right? And let's break this down in relationships. I think there are two basic myths, and maybe one day we'll talk about this. Two basic things that I think are fucking up relationships. One is that it's a 50-50, right? That it's 50-50.
I hate that.
You know, like this concept that, you know, I'll meet you halfway. Let's compromise. If you tie that into giving more than what you expect to receive, how is that 50-50? You know, think about believing that 50-50, but you want to give more than what you take. Does that sound 50-50 to you?
Can't be.
Right. Now, if both parties are doing that, guess what? Now you have an abundance versus just enough. You see the math there? Now you have an abundance. Look, when we're all at the dinner table and we're trying to break up the meal, right? If we all put in the exact amount that we took, how would the bill get paid? It doesn't work.
Right.
We all have to give more than what we actually settled for, what we bought in for. We have to give more. So when we think about starting this process, right, getting clear on what you want and where you're at, replacing any of those limitations that we put on ourselves and on life, watching our language, taking the massive action. Now I'm asking you to give more than what you're going to get out of the process. Guess what, man? If you do that, you're going to have more than what you need.
I have.
More than what you need. We need to be less concerned about giving what we think we should give and give way more than that. You know, when I tip, I look at how much money I have in my hand, right? And you know, I always do like a bare minimum, like 30% on the tip, right? And so if I'm paying with cash, 30% might leave me with an extra $2 or $3. You know, like I might, if I were to take away those $2 or $3, I'd be right at 30%. And then I look at those extra two. So maybe I'm putting $10 down and I have $14 in my hand. But that $10 is way more than what I need to tip. I look at that $3 and I think, what is that $3 going to do for me versus what is that $3 going to do for her? I have never said that and then kept the $3 because I realized like that's really nothing coming out of my pocket. It's not like I can even really put gas in my car with that. Right. Let me go ahead and give this to that person. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is a very simple concept around what we're talking about, man. So I think as a part of your journey, Monte, you got to give more than you're getting in the process of you suffering. You know, you're going to contribute to benefiting the world around you and the life, even if you're still suffering right now. You know, when I was doing my TED Talk in Budapest, my ex-wife.
I just watched that again.
Did you? Yeah. My ex-wife had pulled some stuff, man. She went and took the kids out of school, so the babysitter who was arranged to pick up the kids couldn't get them. I learned about this minutes before I go on my TED Talk. Right? So now my body is ready to boil, but I realize I've got something to do, so let me calm down. I get done with the TED Talk, I get done, you know, interacting, and then all of a sudden it gets real quiet because now I'm by myself and I'm start thinking about this. And I had to go to bed, but I was so worked up. I couldn't go to bed. I was so mad about what she did. So I followed my instincts. I went to a store, I found a store, and I bought a bunch of bologna and bread and cheese. And I went to the park that I knew was across the street from my hotel where I knew a lot of homeless people were. Dude, and in the rain, I'm handing out bologna cheese sandwiches to these people, and they're taking it, right? And I actually sat down with a couple of guys. I couldn't, they weren't speaking English. They couldn't understand me. I couldn't understand them. But we were sitting there eating this sandwich, having an entire conversation. And you know what I wasn't doing? I wasn't boiling anymore. I wasn't even thinking about my problems. I was just enjoying this moment. Yep. And one guy was kissing my hand, and I gave him this sandwich. He was kissing my hand. Another guy started crying and was like eating and crying and looking at me and like, you know, it was the salve I needed. And for a moment, it was a gesture of kindness for these men who probably hadn't received that in a long time, you know. And here we are soaked eating fucking bologna and cheese. I felt like I was in the joint again. You know what I mean?
Right.
But at least I knew what color the meat was this time.
Right. And where it came from.
You know what I mean? So it's the big part of this is giving more than what you're going to get back, including in your relationships, man. So, and I think we live that way because our lives are really filled and generated by service work, you know, to the extent where, you know, we interrupt what we're going to do normally to make sure we're doing something for someone else, man. So those 5 steps, Monte, if you wanna sustain a breakthrough, those are the things you got to do. You got to talk about where you want to be, figure out where you're at. That's all part of one. You've got to annihilate and replace any limitations and stories of the limitations that you tell yourself. You got to watch how you talk about what you're trying to do. You got to create massive change, and you got to give more than what you're going to receive out of this process. If you can do those 5 simple things while facing your fears and recognizing the experience, while living at your strength, not your wounds, while tying up those loose ends, you're going to see massive change happen in your life immediately, almost immediately, because the hardships are still there, but your mindset about what you're going through is very different and makes it more bearable. makes it way more bearable.
Dig that.
My 2 cents on what it takes to church.
All right, you guys, you know what it is. FA, don't forget to share. Make sure your share is public. Otherwise, we won't see it. We won't know that you did share it. Thank you for those who shared today. Thank you for all you who are participating. Amy, I love you. You're here every week. Aunt Chris, Jim Pease, Jim Bob, all you guys who come in here and make these talks special. Really, it's you guys who make it special. So we love you guys. We will see you next Saturday morning, 9:30 a.m. And until then, Sammy, hey, bro, I love you, brother. Thank you for always being there and being a part of it. I like that face of your hat way better than the other one. What was it? Is that a cat on your hat? Is that a cat in a hat?
Is that a billboard you're wearing?
Fuck you. All right, guys.
What does it cost to rent that space?
We love you guys. We will see you on Saturday.
Whoa, wait a minute. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there, man.
Happy Mother's Day. So in our home, I'm going to be dead honest with you guys. We really don't celebrate too many like special days and holidays. We try to spend every day as if it's Mother's Day or Father's Day or a birthday. But you're right. Happy Mother's Day to all you moms out there and all you dad moms out there. His body is a billboard right there, nephew. We try to spend all of our time appreciating what we got on the daily. You act like a mother with them tits. Hey, listen, I'm in the gym now. Like, you guys, I'm only in a B cup. I'm dropping down. I'm gonna get down back to that. No, probably not. You know what, Sammy? Screw all you guys. I love you guys. Thanks for being a part of this. We got some big stuff coming up here in the future. We'll talk about it next week, including some side work that's coming out. That's pretty amazing.
Right.
We love you guys. We hope you have a wonderful day. Happy Mother's Day weekend.
Peace out, everyone.